You're tuned to the wavelength of your own beauty. It's your host, Ahmed Yunus, and this is The Steps. Beautiful people. It's been in the process of always becoming, sometimes we misunderstand the journey as linear, or we misunderstand the journey as consistent in speed along the road. But the reality is that sometimes we grow faster than others, whether it's our physical bodies at a certain part of our development, our minds, our spirit, our ability to connect between the nodes of confusion and incoherence that we are all experiencing. And I must say that the past 6-7 weeks have really, for me personally, been more airplane than steamboat in terms of speed in my process of becoming. Some of it is I think a result of therapy. Some of it is a result of what I'm studying, what I'm learning, what I'm trying to ingest intellectually. Some of it is my return to Chapman, teaching human rights, peace studies, and international relations. Part of it is I got this award thanks to Adham Sahlul and some really cool people at New America Foundation, one of the I think future leaders of national security in the United States. And part of it is attempting to kind of reckon with the political moment that we're in. And as that experience of unfolding was happening for me, I mean, don't worry, I'm still me, nothing too dramatic. I found myself really continuing to schedule interviews. I think subconsciously with the intention of not wanting my voice to overwhelm kind of the process that was happening for me consciously and subconsciously. And the wisdom that you've heard from the people that we've invited thus far has been a part of that discourse or dialectic that I've been having, not just about work, but about life and about what is and what is not. What is a product of memory and trauma and politics and politicking, and what is actually valuable. I mean, wow. Why are we here? What are we doing? And in the past few weeks, I've really seeing myself seeing myself notice that I'm not reacting to things the way I used to, seeing myself notice the reaction of other people to kind of having a more, we obviously don't want to give it any words, but calm. Yeah, let's not give it any words. And that process of unfolding, or that process of becoming, staying committed to this unfinishedness, has in the past 6 weeks, kind of due to life circumstance, I don't know, translated itself for me from its macro application to its individual micro application. That is, we always talk about the process of societies, or the process of organizations, the process of nation states, the process of alliances, and their growth and maturation over time. When we talk about the goal of an individual citizen in attaining critical consciousness, often what we are aiming for is freedom. And a lot of our discourse is about freedom. A lot of critical theories discourse is about freedom. I've been spending a lot of time with the Oxford Handbook on International Relations, and trying to really unpack what freedom has meant in different places at different times through different spaces. But I must be honest with you and say, despite having something is falling, despite having really embraced the idea of attempting to attain critical consciousness as a citizen who is in dialogue between whatever word there is that came to compose identity and the world as it exists, good and bad. And as the racism of Donald Trump and the nation has continued to crumble under the weight of ugliness, I forgot the original purpose of all of this, which was to attain freedom, to be free. Not only to be free from oppression, but to be free to change reality. But I really never had the tools or the skills to apply that paradigm to my own life. How can I become free? How can I become free of my history? The narrative I have adopted as identity? How can I break free of the guilt that 19 years after September 11th, everything is still pretty much shit? We've killed so many people, and we've accomplished absolutely nothing. We have created greater versions through our blunders and our policy stupidity. Greater, more effective versions of the monsters that attacked us on 9/11. And under that kind of crushing realization, I sit here 19 years from the day that defined my life, defined my career, defined my identity. The day, the innocence of being a kid that grew up in a family that didn't inflict much direct trauma was taken because of the trauma of 9/11 and all of the wickedness that came that day and after. And I was sitting in all of these thoughts, and I realized I am not free. I really am not free. I'm not saying that one is to shed their pain or trauma or identity. I'm not saying that one is to dismiss the discrimination and ugliness and hurt. However, I do now believe that we can hold on and never forget, while at the same time not allowing this tragedy to continue to define who we are. Not allowing the totality of the beauty that we give to the world, as Muslims, for instance, be an attempt to ameliorate or distinguish from, or like when we teach decolonizing research methodology, we don't call it that anymore because that still centers the colonial experience. And for 19 years, much of the way that we have collectively tried to deal with our trauma from 9/11 has led to incoherence. And that incoherence has increased confusion among Americans who are Muslim and Americans who do not choose Islam as a way of life. And today, that confusion sits in a different era. In the era of disinformation, in the era of fake news. 89% of Republican respondents, as reported in Forbes, say that they believe some or all of the QAnon conspiracy theory. We live in the age of disinformation. We live in the age of distrust of government. We live in the age of conspiracy. And as human beings, here we are again. Suffering from incoherence. And because we were scared and oppressed, our reaction to this was always collective. We broke up as American Muslims into little MSA tribes and traditionalist tribes and spiritualist tribes and Salafi tribes and the tribes that went to school and came back and became this and that. And we started to seek spaces of validation, spaces of comfort, spaces of healing. And often those spaces were not equipped to deal with our trauma. And so we came with these deformations in the innocent attempt to find peace. In a very confusing and disorienting time. 19 years later today, I would suggest that we try to do the opposite. Let us divest from these identities. Let us attempt to calm the need to represent. And let us attempt to amplify being in our full glory as humans who have embraced their unfinishedness and are committed to the process of always becoming. As parents, as lovers, as citizens, as children, as siblings. In all the roles that we have in this life, let us attempt to build our individual capacity to seek tools that help us deal with our individual now trauma of 9/11. Our individual trauma of 9/11. How it manifests in each of us is different. because we came to that moment and we've journeyed from that moment differently. And when your faith is attacked, sometimes your brain tricks you into believing that the only way for you to defend yourself is through your faith. When your identity is attacked, if I was a Trump supporter today and I felt that my identity was attacked, I would drive a big truck or vote with a Trump flag on it. When how you identify is under attack, sometimes you search through what it is you are being attacked for in order to find the solution to your freedom from that oppression. And that fighting the manipulation of Islam through another manipulation of Islam to argue for the fact that we are not terrorists, that caused a lot of trauma and deformation. It's 2020. We're still trying to convince people that critical thinking doesn't lead you away from the beginning before all beginnings and the ending after all ends, but brings you closer. I am not saying any of the things that you know that I'm not saying. All of what we are is beautiful. All of what we are is needed, including the ugliness, including the trauma. But 19 years of attempting to conference, coalition, banquet, bazaar our way to a super duper Muslim identity. I know I used to mimic these. I used to have such bad ideas. The super duper Muslim identity that's going to fight the super duper racist identity. We failed in that process. We became tribes and camps. We did everything the Prophet told us not to do. So let us try the opposite. Let us each try to find peace within ourselves. Let us each try to find freedom within ourselves. Let us each build the tools to see the egoic mind as it insists and yells and curses and conjures up pain that you have not even yet experienced, and churns the poison in an attempt to find something that can counter it. Let us develop the practice of stepping back from that identity. Let us develop the practice of stepping back from our history. Let us develop the practice of stepping back from our memory. Because I think once we stop replaying in our subconscious, we create the space for the coming of beauty and peacefulness from within, and a confidence in your ability as an individual to find beauty within and to connect that to the beauty from without. I think you now have permission to love yourself. You have permission to be an individual again. You have permission to not be responsible for the branding of a faith. You have permission to be quirky. You have permission to be an individual. You have permission to be free from the compulsion sourced in guilt to represent. And perhaps when we commit ourselves to that process, we will be even stronger in our public representations. We will be even more confident in our diversities. We will be more courageous in committing ourselves to the untested feasibility of what is possible. And my sense is that as we do that, we will begin to truly shed the trauma of being a people, a philosophy, a way of ethics, a religion that is held responsible for the act of criminals. If we excuse ourselves from the cyclical nature of our self-abuse in the name of fighting for the cause, I think we will reach a place where there is peace inside and we are bringing about peace on the outside, not just for ourselves, but for all people. I get it. I don't usually talk like this. I have been really moved by the guests of this podcast. I consciously, subconsciously didn't do any solo podcasts for the past period of time because I was in the process of trying to sit and listen and meditate on the wisdom that is coming from the people that we've been talking to and from the books that I've been reading. So I thought I would take 9/11, a day that has been Oof. So difficult for 19 years. On a very deep and visceral, personal level. To just ponder out loud, think out loud about where I am in my process of healing from that day. I want to thank everybody that bought merch. You know, there were times where we would just, I just couldn't believe the humans that are saying, yes, this is it. This is a beautiful thing. Let's support this beautiful thing. It means so much to me. I want to thank you for doing that. And I want to thank you for continuing with me on this journey. We'll be back. More guests. More of me. More books. More ideas. More art. More music. And with the added, perhaps, paradigm that this process of unfolding, unpacking, journeying towards peace, stillness, calm, understanding, hope, love. My hope is that that process can be for us as friends, as leaders, as people of community, as thinkers, as however we identify ourselves, and for the world. So let it be a dual approach. Let us, as we learn to love the world, learn to love ourselves. Let's develop the practice of being able to distinguish between ourselves and our identity, between ourselves and our emotions, between ourselves and the products of our minds. Let us attempt to enhance the sincerity of this journey in the hope that we can attain freedom for ourselves to continue developing and continue journeying, and that we can produce some work that helps people in their journey towards freedom as well. I love you all. I'm deeply grateful to you for entertaining this very different kind of podcast this week. And I look forward to our journey continuing together. Okay, so how are we going to say bye to everybody, Leila? How are we going to say bye? Why don't we say bye in Spanish?
Adios.
Adios.
Adios. Bye.
حضرات السادة الركاب، أهنئكم بسلامة الوصول إلى مطار القاهرة.